So I want to welcome everybody to today's podcast, or if you're watching it on YouTube, on today's video. I'm fortunate to have with me David Rose, and David has been an entrepreneur, kind of a serial entrepreneur. It looks like he's had businesses that he started, businesses he sold, he's buying businesses, he's launching startups, and he also has studied rejection. David, I know I didn't get much of your introduction in there, so you want to tell us a little more about yourself?
Thank you. Hey, great to be here with you, Ken. Thank you so much. Nice intro. That was very warm and accurate. So you did a great job. I am a serial entrepreneur, and I did start my first business, real business, when I was in high school. Thank you, Mr. Dixon, a math teacher who was teaching the class Time Value of Money, TVM, and the kind of things where you say, hey guys, you might want to buy a house or a car someday. You probably want to understand simple and compound interest. Well, I also understood how to take that and apply it to bank draft financing for tote-to-note car lots in Lewisville, Texas, instead of letting them buy their cars at auction and take a loan from a bank for 30 days, cycle through cash that I had saved. Not a lot at the time, 10 grand. That's been the challenge, and oh boy, it's a lot of fun.
Having your own business can be a lot of fun. The other side is, especially if you have brick and mortar business, I used to tell my friends that starting a business was a lot like grabbing a tiger by both ears. That you start your own business, you can play golf when you want to, and they had this imaginary lifestyle of a businessman. And after you get big enough, you can start to have that lifestyle, but starting the business, that's not what you start with.
No.
Yeah.
What a wonderful picture you paint, grabbing the tiger by both ears. I think to expand on that, it's super accurate because you have to commit in business. You have to grab on with both hands. And just like you do when you grab a tiger, in your analogy, by the ears, but you're also looking at danger. You're pulling danger into you. And business, as my next book, Renaissance Methodology, will say, and we've always said, is business is managing chaos. And when you pull that tiger in, boy, you better be ready to manage some chaos, because in business, you're pulling in all kinds of dangers. And most of those are going to be pitfalls in how you spend, make, or lose money, and around something you and I have talked about in our past together, again, is people and process and behavior change. And boy, that one will pop you in the mouth if you're not ready.
You're right about that. Okay, so let me start on the questions I have here for you. The first one is, have you had any mentors in your life and in your career?
Oh, well, sure. I have. A couple come to mind right off the bat. Jim Carriage, the founder and owner of the Highland Group, based out of Bethesda, Maryland. Very lucky to run into him at the age of 24 into the operational management consulting industry, where typically you had to have about 20 to 40 years of business experience in running P&L and being an executive in a major company to be in that position that Jim Carriage allotted me. Granted, there was a string to it, which was I had to be really good at opening doors and getting our company meetings with exclusively presidents and CEOs of the biggest companies around the world. I had to be good at that. But if I would be good at that, the commitment was they would put me on some consulting projects, give me exposure to what consulting was about, and teach me the ropes. And for that, forever grateful for Jim Carriage. I know he's now moved with his wonderful wife, Joyce, over to Florida, where they built another lovely home. And then Dr. Gordon Dotson, God rest his soul. He recruited me away from Jim after about a year of trying and told me the world I could open up to and be running in terms of running divisions and getting out there and being an executive leader, and opened the door for me. You often think about those mentors in your life and you think, if they hadn't been exposed to me at that point in my life, where would I be today? I guess you'll never know. But those two individuals made a difference. I lecture as much as I can. I'll lecture at no charge for universities, and I always want to try to give back to youth. I love speaking with youth, and my challenge when I speak is to try to line them up after it's over, see how many want to come up and chat and have questions and share how they've been moved or motivated. And really, it's not hard to motivate young men and women in their late teens and early 20s. They're starving and hungry for a mentor. There's not enough to go around, really.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it's one of the things that when I teach service management, that I focus on helping the managers in training to understand that being a mentor is a huge piece of what they need to do. And sometimes that means that they will help a person leave their company, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Because what it does to the morale and the impact on the rest of the people in the department, saying, hey, he helped him even though that guy went on somewhere else. That means he's on our side. And that's a good thing to have in a mentor. So what is it that drives you? I mean, obviously you have a passion to help others, but what else drives you?
Well, and I'll be clear about that. I do have a passion to help others, but we're human beings and we're always in it for ourselves and to support our family. And I want to put my mask on first in the airplane like anybody else, but I truly am in it to help others. And a lot of people say that. So that segues into other motivators, other factors in life. for whatever reason, I never really could identify at an early age or figure out, because quite frankly, Ken, it's just bizarre to say what I'm about to say. But working in businesses and people and processes and helping solve problems is a tremendous motivator for me. I can't tell you the joy that I get out of engaging in this, even in those projects and CEOs that don't end up becoming clients of ours that we're exploring opportunity with. I learn a lot from being able to lift up the hood to their organization and what I see. I thrive on that. So constantly, I'm really looking at ways to improve businesses. I write about it on a monthly basis. I love case studies. I love when we've done surveys and questionnaires and looked into individuals and businesses in 22 countries around the world. And that odd factor of loving to put my hands in the mud of business is what I get the most excitement out of. So there's my poor wife, my poor son and daughter. They've had to deal with a weirdo like that, a guy who loves to do that. But hey, I love scuba diving as well. So, I like to have some fun, but when it really comes down to it, Ken, man, family business, I grew up in it. So I've just always known, what are you doing in business today? What are you doing in business lately? And you always got to be doing something good in business, because it is a what have you done for me lately kind of world. I can't say, well, I built a double drive-through full sandwich and ice creamery and coffee shop a few years back, which I did. We were talking about brick and mortar. I built that under the brand of Snow Monkey, and it was a lot of fun for a few years, and then turned around and sold it. That was great. Can't live on that. That was years ago. In business, what have you done for me lately? What are you doing now? And I think that for somebody who wants to compete at that level, it's fun and maybe a little bit of a curse, you might say, a little bit tongue in cheek, because you're always chasing a new venture.
Yes. My wife is not a real fan of that about me, and that I tend to want to have more than one iron in the fire at the same time. But it was interesting too, because you talked about wanting to get into it. And it sounds to me that you have a little bit of a technician mentality, because as technicians, and I think the reason I stayed in copier industry as long as I did, I never ever intended to be in the copier industry at all, was I enjoyed solving the puzzles of fixing equipment. I had a piece of equipment that doesn't work, and I wanted to be able to solve the puzzle, because when you solve the puzzle and you get it back to working, you have this immense feeling of satisfaction that says, I got an S on my chest. I can do this.
It's incredible. Yeah, that feeling you described, absolutely incredible, right? So you're going to keep coming back. It's addicting, right? It's like a drug.
I think you're entirely right about that. Okay, so what is it that holds people back from becoming bold? You see leaders that are, and we talked about this before we started the recording today, how people can get in a rut and they're afraid to make changes. It's just easier to stay in the rut. They don't want to be bold and try something a little different. So what is it you think that holds them back from that?
Okay, I'll zero in on that for you real quickly. Smallest disclaimer is this may sound so cliche and something that many keynote speakers pick up on and throw out there. I don't care how it may sound. This is where people need to pay close attention, because this is where you change your life. And you may have heard it, but it's not about what you think you know or partially, don't even know. It's about action. So what's holding people back from being bold? What we do with Renaissance methodology first is we get a leader to envision what we call an incredible vision, right? You got to think about it first. That's holding people back. Those are two things. One is just allowing yourself to think about it. Leaders think, I want to make more money. I want to raise some service metrics. I want to lower some cost. I'd like better employee morale. So they think in pieces like this. What they don't think of is they don't allow themselves to picture something, not utopia, but something like, hey, I'm going to create Disneyland here. That's something that we used to say. Hey, how'd you like to create Disneyland here? And people get that. They get an emotional connection. Yes, the happiest place on earth. So first you have to vision it. And you have to allow yourself to get really pretty, really fancy, and go real big and bold. And when you can think of that, then you need to overlay a few measurements on it. This is going to be measured by how happy we make our staff, and how happy we make our customers, and how much innovation we have. We're going to create a beautiful picture and measure it with those three things. Most people just don't do that. They don't go that far. And the second piece of what's holding people back is the ability to lock in and go, by George, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make this happen. Leaders, one, don't want to think of something that's an incredible vision. And two, if you can think of it, how many people want to set themselves up for failure like that? Not many. And so we have to work with leaders before we can even implement a Renaissance methodology over those two steps. And not everybody makes it. We don't start projects until we know we can satisfy that. We start a project and engage. And I get serious with the leader, more so knowing that they've thought of it, envisioned it. They put those metrics on there. This is incredible, and I am going to measure it on a monthly basis by how happy my staff is, how happy my customers are, and the level of innovation we're getting. We're going to measure that. We're going to put the measurements out everywhere and then commit to it and tell people this is what we're going to do. That's what holds people back, man. And it's like, well, yeah, well, duh. No, not duh. You need to get up in the morning. If you want to have a growth mindset, maybe do a little meditation on that and focus on that and start to allow yourself to feel comfortable with, I am going to stretch my imagination and then I am going to commit to it. Sounds simple, maybe sounds like something the last keynote speaker mentioned. This is the real deal. You accomplish those things and bam, amazing stuff happens.
As we were talking, a couple of things popped into my mind. First of all, we think about Elon Musk. He's somebody that had some money and had some success, but he started out, he thought he built an electric car. And so he built an electric car that became very successful. Then he decided he was going to build rockets. And so he started building rockets. And said, well, I might as well make internet popular all over the world. So he started building a network of that. And you think about it, he wasn't somebody that was trapped in by a boring company that's going to bore holes all underneath roadways. But he just got out there and said, this is what I want to see. This is what I think is possible. Let's go do it. And that's what he's been doing. And the other thing I had to play on, you talked about utopia. I just published an article on my blog. It was entitled Office Equipment Dealer Nirvana. I used the idea a little bit, but from John Lennon's Imagine.
Yeah.
Thinking about all of the challenges that face office equipment dealers and their customers, the things that they don't like in their business. And I said, imagine a world without this and without this, because there is a way to do it. And I know the way to do it, but you've got to be willing to think about, is it a possibility before you can go there?
And envision it. Is it a possibility? Yes. How great can I make it? How much greater can I make it? Okay, I bet it can be even greater, but now I have to commit to it, tell my people. You have to then make an emotional connection to your people. And then you step back. Leaders aren't going to do it all. People are going to do it well beyond any leader's wildest imagination if you get them emotionally engaged. And we all want to be emotionally engaged. I truly believe, Ken, learned this from mentor Jim Carriage. People wake up with the best of intentions. I really believe that. Almost everybody wakes up with the best of intentions and we want to do good things. But then we go out there and we're held back by certain process malfunctions, communication issues, mind blocks in our head. My book, Overcoming the 15 Categories of Rejection, mind block is the first category of rejection. We're held back by these types of things. And the truth of the matter is a good leader, a real good leader, can harness that power and rally so much effort behind him that he could almost be invincible with his goals.
I agree with that. Okay, so tell me why you wrote the book, Overcoming the 15 Categories of Rejection.
Oh, well, looking back, I had a couple of manuscripts written. I used them as training material for my Renaissance methodology for my teams. And I thought, you know what, I need to sharpen these up and make a book because it's going to help the business keep growing and continuing making money. But then some wild idea hit me, Ken. I was asked to speak for a publicly traded company and they wanted me to speak to an executive crowd focused on selling, and somehow it came up with talk about rejection. And I said, sure. So I go online to look up the categories of rejection. It's about 14 years ago. You could do that 14 years ago. You could go online, but still didn't exist. Wasn't there. I go to the library to find the categories of rejection, Ken. Should have got her name. Biggest mistake I didn't, but the picturesque librarian, very well kept older lady with the beehive hairdo, horn-rimmed glasses. This is what you would picture in a movie if the librarian was helping me. I knew she could find the categories of rejection out there in the world of books. Couldn't do it. Dewey Decimal System, her computer, nothing. I go talk to Dr. Sager, the dean of the business college at the University of North Texas at the time. I'm working with him, ask him for help. He whistles down his hallway. All these deans flood in. I'm like, guys, help me. I'm looking all over for the categories of rejection. I'm preparing for this speech I'm going to give. Help me. One professor says, David, yeah, that doesn't exist. It's the typology you're looking for. What's that? He's like, typology, the types of? It's like, okay, got it. Thanks. New word. It's like, well, nobody's come up with that. I thought about it, but nobody's categorized rejection. So there you go. So I left there thinking I could do it. I could categorize rejection. I had to change the topic of my speech, but I thought I could do it. Well, Ken, it took a long time, lots of money, and about 10 years. I thought I wanted to be real noble, and I didn't know how hard it was going to be, or it might have dampened my nobleness, to be honest. Thank goodness I didn't know what a path I was setting on. And I thought, hey, if I could figure this out, this could probably help people. This could help young people. This would have helped me maybe. This can help my children. And that was the quest, to be the first person to categorize the sources of yes or no, the categories of rejection. And I'm glad I did. It's opened many doors around the world for me, sharing that knowledge and taking that knowledge to people in more colleges to lecture in. And some of the letters I received, the emails I received, literally, they flare up my allergies, Ken. All of a sudden, my eyes are leaking. It must be the allergies, right?
Yeah, it must be allergies, yes.
It must be, I'm not a softie, but people having a book that addresses rejection and teaches them how to overcome it is a big impact. And so I'm pleased that I've done that and might look to expand upon that down the road. That's the whole story of how that came about.
Oh, very cool. So you mentioned something earlier I want to circle back to. You talked about the Renaissance methodology. So tell me about the Renaissance methodology, what it is and what it means. How do you use it?
Sure. It's the approach that we take to transform a business, to help a business make more money, go to market and get more sales. Symbiotically, while we work on sales, we also work on the client experience, that customer experience, whoever the end user is, that patient experience. We work in many industries, remember. Sales, go-to-market approach, marketing sales, and the client experience. Renaissance builds those. We re-engineer the plan with that incredible vision. So the R in Renaissance is re-engineer the plan, create the budget and the metrics around it. I'll go quickly. We energize the people and get buy-in, get them involved in an emotional connection. Then we nominate the champions. These will not be the managers. They're already champions. These will be pivotal players in the ranks. We nominate champions to help implement this re-engineered plan. And we apply an integrated selling service. This is the term I've developed and used. We call modes to market. We get 7+ modes to market. These are marketing tactics working together. It's incredible. We should go into that sometime on its own. It's a game changer. Things we've done for MasterCard, for example, Yahoo, game changing, not to mention smaller companies you've never heard of, game changing with our getting 7 modes to market working together. That's the AISS of Renaissance, apply an integrated selling service. Then we accelerate the plan and full-blown implementation with milestones that we're tracking. We negate the barriers. We start up front with the CEO and we tell them people are going to love when they hear that you want to make this a happy place, but when they realize they have to be handcuffed to some of the results, they're going to want to shut this down. So we already start to negate barriers from the moment we meet CEOs all throughout the implementation. The N is negate people and process barriers. We set up a vertical, regimented communication system. Champions at every level, leaders at every level are meeting, talking about the plan we're implementing for the new go-to-market and the client experience. And we take champions from each of these levels and they meet at least once a month. This vertical regimented communication process is just our way of not getting into trouble with bad communication, having people talking continually and at all levels exchanging information. That's the glue that holds Renaissance together, the magic right there. Next to E, evolve. We evolve through metrics. I developed the theory of accelerance, where you measure a person's 5 to 8 mission critical tasks they do to impact sales and experience. And then you put them on a team and you measure them individually and a team. And when you do that, theory of accelerance has proven time and time again that you harness the psychological power and drive of people to compete at the individual level and then the positive peer pressure of the team level. So we use the E to evolve through measuring people, and we broadcast those metrics everywhere and every way we can to make it more of a positive peer pressure and full transparency. Those are the steps of Renaissance. Been doing it for almost 20 years, and it is a true game changer. Like you and I had said in one of our other conversations, all slick, good-sounding, experienced people in business can tell a CEO, I could help you, but not everybody has a process, and that's what we came onto the market with years ago to say, we're not going to make it up as we go. We have a methodology for transmogrifying your business, for go-to-market sales and the experience, and that's what we're going to focus on. Would you like us to help? And a lot of people have asked us to help, and we have. We brought over $1 billion in bottom line results to our clients. Granted, that's over a long period of time. The number's actually much bigger than that because we've worked with some billion-dollar companies like TXI and other groups where we've turned on massive revenue streams over $100 million at a time through a 2-year implementation, opening up new markets. We worked with the software company in the last few years and built a $40 million revenue stream from the ground up, and that's recurring. Renaissance has been at this game a long time. We measure our results, and that's what we're all about. And that's this crazy passion I told you. It came from developing this methodology, Ken. Renaissance is our secret sauce, as you had put it before when we chatted.
Okay, so tell me, what is an awkward situation that you faced with executives?
Well, there's been quite a few, because when executives are sometimes forced to change and you're talking about an individual who generally is dictating the rules and has power and has people cowering to them or has a lot of that yes mentality around them, they get these sort of ideas that they can treat people sometimes manners that you and I would consider to be rude, right? Well, awkwardness has come up around where executives are having to change outside of their boundaries because the big boss said so. And you know what? They want to stick it to. They want to try to dampen down the process or throw some mud on it, throw some shade out there on the process, as people might say today. So a specific awkward process was working, I'll leave the company name, was working with a publicly traded firm on the NASDAQ, working with them to build a new go-to-market approach. I'd been tasked with taking over market and helping integrate 28 acquisitions that we've been making. Well, one of these acquisitions, Ken, was of a $100 million division. And the managing director, the leader of that, he had recently put out a book about a year previously. And so he had his own ways about how we should be going to market. He thought his book could do it all. And we said, well, we need to get 7 modes to market going, and you'll see. Well, we start building this, and the lead generation went from a few major leads a week to several leads a week, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then it started doubling and tripling. So we're opening up doors with CEOs around the country. So it's working. So the board is loving it. But here's this one executive who was acquired and has been running this $100 million division. And one day, this engine we built made a call into a client of his. Oops, a business development engine seeking new clients made a call to an existing client. Well, manure happens. Stuff happens. Yeah. We're trained for that. The team, the executive who has made the call, handled it, smoothed it over. Nobody looked silly or embarrassed, but that client did call this managing director and said, hey, I just want to let you know, Mr. called from your group and they didn't realize that I've been working with you for years and they wanted to introduce the company to me. Not a big deal. This guy lost his mind. The managing director lost his mind, like beyond. So calls, blows up, loses it, hangs up the phone before I can calm him down. Can't get him on the phone. Next day, he shows up at the office. So he flew to Dallas from Boston, shows up so he could start part 2 of this irate and how stupid and unprofessional. And he's going to shut everything down. And the fact we're creating leads and making sales doesn't matter, because if you make the company look stupid, it's not worth it. It's just none of it's worth it. And we looked stupid. We called a client and didn't know they were a client, despite the fact that we had a way that we handled that conversation. So this situation, he's shown up and now in front of a large staff on the 43rd floor of one of the bank buildings in downtown Dallas, where we're headquartered. He's losing it. People are embarrassed. Staff can hear this. It's unprofessional. The awkwardness that I'm feeling is overwhelming, and it changes on a dime by asking him this one question. I won't say his name, but we'll say his name is Bill. Let me ask you this. I understand how angry you are. It's hard for me to understand the depth of your anger based on the circumstance, but I get anger from having a client touched. But I have to know, do you think that if we call our CEO right now, that he would agree with you that we should shut down a system that's making money and opening more doors at the risk of maybe calling a client again and making a mistake? What do you think he would say? So the guy all of a sudden gets this, so we both report to the CEO, we're going to put him on the phone. Everything all of a sudden from irrationality came to, okay, this might not turn out good for me. And he said, you know what? We're men. I think we can handle it ourselves. And I would have thought the same thing, but I don't think that's going to work now. And the more I think about it, we're going to have to step into my office over here and call the CEO and have this conversation, because do you realize that you just alerted a whole floor of people to your tirade and everyone now knows what's going on? Oh my gosh, what have I done? What have I done? I've handled this poorly. He's like, you shouldn't have. He didn't like this. You shouldn't have done. Your team, you're responsible for this. They report to you. They should have. You're right. They should have never made a phone call to a client. But now what have we done? And are we willing to blow up a revenue engine that's making more money? Let's step in here before somebody else calls the CEO and tells him what's going on, and we look like a couple of idiots. So we step into my office, Ken. I've really done it here. I put my foot in my mouth. David's doing a great job. They accidentally made a call to client, blah, blah, blah. You know, they spent tens of millions of dollars with this, but it really wasn't a big deal. Everything can keep going. We're good. We hang up and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Calm down. He looks at me and says, you know, if I had just stopped and thought for a minute that I was being too consumed in my own personal vendetta over somebody touched my client, I never would have acted like this. I said, well, let me ask you this one more question. If we now work together and use this to build a real bond together as colleagues, maybe not friends, but as strong colleagues, what do you think we can accomplish and turn this around? We never would have gotten to this moment, would we? And he's like, oh, wow. I put my hand out at that point in time to shake his hand. I remember he looked almost as if like, I can't believe this young punk is now willing to shake my hand. Okay, that's an awkward situation turned around. What I can tell you, no bullshit at all, is because of that relationship, we mounted a campaign to pharmaceutical companies. within 6 months, closed over $10 million in new pharmaceutical business because of turning a very awkward, embarrassing situation around. And the point I want to make out of that was staying calm. At many points in time, I felt like punching this guy in the face. Now, we would have probably neither been employed any longer. And at many points in time, I felt like telling him off and what he needed to hear to calm down. And that probably would have been like pouring gasoline on the situation. But I think that's the epitome. I may not be the best golfer, but I know that when you're on the golf course and things aren't going well, you don't throw your golf club, you don't curse, you don't act a fool. And in business, the same thing will prevail. In most awkward situations, they've never been as extreme as that or have that kind of outlandish outcome where later in the commissions on that I made were pretty good that turned things around like that. But awkwardness is going to happen in business. And that's where you want to keep your cool, man. And I envisioned something incredible. I was really trying to think, what can I do to turn this around and make things great? I didn't really know how to do it or where it was going, but I was bold enough to try. That's what I want to share with people is, hey, man, keep it cool.
Yeah, and that's very sage advice there. Okay, so have you seen anything in business that really breaks your heart?
Well, two things. One is I've done a lot of work within healthcare, and I have done some extensive work with health brokers. I've been on the inside track with Aon, one of the leading global health brokerages around the world, as well as many companies. I was in an open enrollment a few years ago where I was there to study and learn to help build a better people and process. An open enrollment where the health benefits are being offered. Well, there was a lady there on that day. We were outside of New York City, maybe about an hour and a half in a smaller suburb. There was a lady who broke down crying and was explaining that they're having a hard time affording their mortgage because the cost of health insurance has gone up so much and she doesn't know what to do anymore. And she went into explaining how her daughter is sick. That was heartbreaking to be on the front line, and I'm there to learn and study, but end up seeing the real tragedy of American healthcare and how it impacts a hardworking family, a mother in this case. And so that was painful to see. So hopefully with some of the clients I work with, companies like William Short's, Cressa, looking to be disruptors in healthcare, things like that will change someday. But I'll tell you something else that breaks my heart out there, a little more general, and that's just leaders who are not focused on creating a real wow environment for their staff. We create wow experience. That's what Renaissance builds. So yeah, you're supposed to be working on that experience for your customer, your client. But what breaks my heart is seeing the majority of leaders that just aren't trained and they don't understand it and they don't know how to focus on building a business that creates a wow experience for the people that work there. Because you're going to see your colleagues more than you see your family and your kids and your wife or your husband, whoever. And that part hurts. That's part of the passion of Renaissance, is to help change that. Who knows, Ken, maybe when the new book comes out later this summer, Renaissance Methodology, and we share what we've done for almost 2 decades, it might inspire more leaders to take on a renaissance of their own to make it a better place to work. It's a fixable problem.
It is fixable. All you got to do is get people that have the desire. So you mentioned modes to market a couple of times.
So they're simply marketing tactics. A mode is the marketing tactic, and the market are the people you sell to. That's it. So here's the market, right? You want to connect to them. And what is your business doing? Are you creating some podcasts? Are you doing newsletters, email campaigns, face-to-face meetings, cold calls, warm calls, digital presence, pay-per-click? What are they? Modes are any type of marketing tactic you can think of. And the market is the exact demographic you're going for. What has made modes to market so powerful is that we create a process around it. One, we create a measurement for identifying more of the market. This comes to a shock for most leaders, and kind of a light bulb goes off when they're like, ding, that's more important than I ever thought. When you explain to them, are you measuring the amount of buyers in your database, in your CRM, your contact record management system, whether that's Salesforce.com or Microsoft Dynamics or Pipeliner? Are you measuring the increase in new identified buyers and fixing the erroneous information in there? Some of those buyers' information is changing. What are you doing about that? So that puts a system on the market to start measuring and improving that. There's a way to go about it. We have a secret plan for that has been amazing for years. Identifying more buyers. Hey, I'm a leader. I want to do that, leaders say. Now the modes, getting 7+ modes working together is what we do. In short, there's no alignment in even some of the billion-dollar companies' marketing that we walk into, much less the mid-size and small companies. Siloed, marketing all over the place, doing this, doing that, none of it working together, but wondering, why is my ROI on marketing terrible? We paid these 7 companies to do this and got nothing. Hey, if it worked like that, where you paid money and made money, come on. We know that doesn't work. You need consistent, repeatable processes. Renaissance says, we've all heard of CPR. It saves lives. CPR saves lives. Why am I saying that? Because we build CRP. consistent, repeatable processes. It saves and grows businesses. And we build that in our modes to market and all of our processes. But in modes to market, 7+ modes to market, consistent, repeatable processes, touching the market, working together, generate more qualified leads, and will build very strong follow-up system, which is key. And that's essentially what modes to market are. We build this system for how marketing interacts, spends its money, tracks itself, and handles its leads and its research. Truth is, Renaissance methodology and the things we do are not something I can put in a real fast soundbite or a fancy word. I had a keynote speaker a few years ago tell me, David, what you do, and we had a couple of our clients there speaking on our behalf, so that this keynote had seen them and said, David, what you do is wow, real, and just sounds incredible, but man, it's just not sexy. It's too long and all this business. And I don't apologize for that. I didn't know to say it to that person at the time. I actually had to think about it for a while. I was like, well, maybe we should try to dress this up and make it sexy and just explain it in little sound bites. We make you double your revenue. We'll double your... No, we're a science. We're a business development and a management science. And that's what Renaissance is. So at the end of the day, it's nothing that's going to just be, hey, we'll do a one-day workshop and transmogrify your business. But it works, and it'll take a solid year to get the system really jamming out. It's the way to go.
Okay. And so what makes or breaks your process with a business?
Ooh, wow, Ken, the breaker. Okay, so it's a little bit of a circle back to that commitment we talked about. That's what breaks it every time, is when the leader becomes distracted. After saying, I'm committed, I'm going to tunnel vision to this incredible vision of mine, and using your words earlier, grab a tiger by 2 ears, pull it in. We talked about, you've got to commit. When you grab a tiger by 2 ears, you're pulling in danger. Well, that's what goes wrong. Leaders that are fired up and like, hey, let's do this. And we get down the road, and then the next flavor of the month comes up. We talk to leaders, hey, we want to know up front, what's your M&A strategy looking like? For lots of reasons. But when we get down the road 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and you get all hot and bothered on an acquisition you want to make, as you should, and it needs some priority, you can't lose focus here. Things go wrong when the leader loses focus, plain and clear. And we prepare them. Don't get scared when your team starts coming and saying, hey, I don't know about all this. They're going to love it at first, and then there's going to be a period of time where we handcuff them to results, and they're going to want to revolt. Once we ride through that, things get a lot smoother. So we have to watch out for those critical periods of time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So why is it that they say that cash flow is the number one reason businesses fail?
Oh, gosh, how often do we read that? I've been asked to speak and do some parts to small businesses, and that's always the topic. Talk about why they fail, and there's 1,000 lists. You can Google query, it'll tell you about cash flow. Cash flow is attributed as the number one businesses fail. Well, that's malarkey. It's really hidden. Yes, the business gets into a cash flow problem at some point in time, but that's the blood coming out of the real gash, the gaping gash from the dagger. The real dilemma that's blowing businesses up is just precisely in what Renaissance is designed to fix, and that is that people do not understand how to manage. That's the people and process again. I say that a lot, and I'm just saying manage people. They're essentially the same thing. And so when it comes down to it, organizations lack a systems for that. They just lack it. Most companies think they have it, but not really. Not a true systems for management. It's focused on an incredible vision and has a way to measure that and engage the people. At the end of the day, it's a hard thing to factor in because leaders take it personal, Ken. When you tell a leader that, you're now probably insulting them. We're taking a jab at them. Not all leaders feel that way, and we find the larger the organizations, oftentimes the more open they are to hearing that message. And more mid-sized and smaller the organization, the more guarded and the more personal they take it. But the best leaders just need to realize hey, let go. Just let go. We all need help, and nobody, I doubt, probably only 1% at best of business leaders or anybody coming out of a business school even has an inkling about building a systems for management. Why? Schools don't teach it. Even my buddy out of Harvard, Joe, tells me, hey, no, we didn't really learn about a systems for management and this unified go-to-market. We learn lots of things, but we learn in silos, and that's just education. We learn a class, a silo. people really aren't trained on building the systems for management. And therein lies part of that tragedy of who suffers? Staff and employees suffer. Yeah.
Well, listen, David, I've really enjoyed having you on today. I do think we ought to get together again and have another discussion. I have really liked this one. And so again, thank you for being here and being such a good guest.
Hey, thank you so much again for having me. It's always a blast when you and I chat. So you name it and we'll get together as soon as we can get in the same seat at the same time. I think we're going to have to break some bread.
That sounds like a winner for me. For those of you that are listening to this as a podcast, do me a favor, subscribe to the podcast or follow the podcast. Every week, at least, I have a new guest on. We talk about management and business. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, hit the like button because that tells YouTube there was value. Hit the subscribe button and the notify so you'll get notified. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching.